Hello everybody and welcome to Cabaret Secrets. This is Gary Williams and today I'm joined by Phil Barley and we're going to do something of a special today, a short podcast, but really focusing just on using social media. Phil knows all about that. He made a big contribution in the Cabaret Secrets book. Phil, welcome to Cabaret Secrets. Everybody is telling me these days that there's no point in spending money on print media advertising, that it's all about social media. But when they say that to me, I can see they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just saying what everybody else is saying. What is that whole thing of social media and online networking? What does it mean?
The way to distill that down is to say, if you see an advert in the paper, you know it's the company that's paid for the big advert, and it's just saying our product is great, trust us. Whereas if you had a friend recommend a product to you, that recommendation is much better than the product recommending itself. So you want ideally people to be recommending you, and you will obviously trust their recommendations if you receive them. So with social media marketing, you've got the opportunity in theory of building a following who in turn become your sales force. They go out and recommend you to their friends and to their followers. And so that's the main difference between, I suppose, traditional, what is called interruption marketing, which is like your television adverts and that kind of thing, and radio adverts.
Interrupting something you'd actually rather see than the advert.
Exactly, yeah, taking you away from the thing you want, which obviously in itself is an annoyance, to social marketing. If you look at Facebook now, interruption marketing has hit that quite severely, because in your normal thread you'll see lots of adverts from companies because they're now paying for adverts on Facebook, and that's interrupting your social feed from your friends. So that's not working. That's using social media against itself in a way, and that's using traditional methods, and it's not being open-minded.
And what happens presumably is that people just learn to blank it out, just ignore it. That's what I do. I'm flicking through on my phone. I see these adverts, and I just, obviously they make a little imprint in my mind, but I quickly flick through them because I'm wanting to see what my friends are doing, because that's why I'm there. Do you think if they do too much of that, people are just going to start zoning out of the whole Facebook experience because it's littered with too many ads?
Yeah, definitely. That's I think the stock price has dropped a little bit of Facebook because of one of these things, because of that. You just, on a technical note, you can choose to never see those posts from those people again. So right. If you see something come through, it's annoying.
So broadly speaking, on definitions then, social media you've just talked about, what are the main places, the main organisations that constitute social media? Okay,
so obviously you've heard of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. They're probably what people would consider the top three. Pinterest is coming along very quickly, and there's things like Foursquare and so on. There's lots of social outlets that you can go to, but if you are a business, and if you're a smaller business, you need to at least be on Twitter and Facebook if you want to attract those kind of markets. And in many ways, Twitter is the easiest one to start with, just because it's open. Everything you write on there is open to the public, for anyone to read. People haven't got to be following you to read what you're writing. And you can start listening to what people are saying, and so therefore you could start by you could join Twitter, and you could start searching it for people who might be of interest to you. So it could be singers, actors, bookers, anybody that's on Twitter, and you can then start to see what they're talking about. You can make a list which is people in the industry that interest you, and
so you can group together all those particular people. So you have to read what they're up to, not the whole world.
Not the whole world, exactly. And the good thing about that is you don't have to follow them in order to make a list, so they don't have to know that you are following them. So even if it's competitors, you could make a list of competitors, for example, and read what they're talking about and how they're marketing themselves, and then you can.
So tell us quickly, because I still speak to people now, and I must admit I'm slowly beginning to understand Twitter, but most of the people I talk to, they don't really get it. They understand. They go on the website and they see that there's people making tweets and saying little things and so on, but it seems to be a really big thing. They talk about it on the news. It seems to be all pervasive, but I still don't really get how it's so powerful and how I can use it to sell more records.
You're definitely not alone in that. I think most of the people who claim to know about it are on the catch-up themselves, because it's changing all the time anyway. But if the BBC, for example, uses it, if BBC Breakfast has its own Twitter handle, all the DJs, all that kind of thing, it's got to be doing something. And I think ultimately it's an immediate way to connect with your audience and for them to connect with you. So on a practical standpoint, if you're in the UK or if you're on Wi-Fi and you're getting people tweeting you, you can instantly say, "Oh, thanks for the comments," or "Oh, yeah, I understand that you've made a request for this. I'll try and put that on my next album," or whatever that is, in a sort of specific way. And that from a what we'd like to term a brand advocate, which is someone who ideally would be going out selling your product for you just because they love you so much. If a brand advocate is on there and is asking for that kind of contact with the singer or with the person they're connecting with, and they actually get a response, that instantly attracts them to you more, and would like to, and they'll start to retweet what you're saying. They'll start to advertise for you. And the idea is then it's a bit like network marketing, in that you can make a connection with 1,000 people, and if they all then talk about you in a positive way to 10 people, you suddenly got 10,000 people, and they in turn could do that.
So it's an easy way of communicating with your fan base or potential fan base all over the world. I mean, before Twitter, before the internet, the only way to do it would have been by telephone calls or letters, which of course would be impossible. That's what people did. They wrote to their heroes, didn't they? And they and the star, the whoever's in controlling the product, the brand, would write back a little letter, and it would be the same thing, wouldn't it? And people would feel very excited to get a letter from whoever Henry Mancini, send a little note back saying thank you for your interest in my new album, and they'd feel thrilled about that. They might put it on the wall and they'd tell all their friends about it. It's really exactly the same thing, but in a digital form, which means it's much quicker. And well, that's it. Really, it's basically the same thing as that. It's just quicker.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I read your book. This is very good. Thank you.
Well, you are in it, so you probably just read your own bit first, I bet, didn't you?
I really did. Yeah. Skip ahead. And there's a bit in there where you say you're talking to a Portuguese speaker on the ship, and they're saying, blah. Well, all you hear is basically blah 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 album blah blah blah, and you say thanks very much. My album's $20.
Yeah.
And in the same way, you could have 100 people come to you saying, I love what you do, blah, 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 and your standard response could be, thanks very much, here's the link to my latest album, here's the link to my my new book. And the great thing about that is every time you're sending out a link and someone's clicking on it, it's validating your relevance of your website, or wherever you're clicking to Google or to the search engines. So every time another link is clicked on and it's satisfying that need, Google says, "Oh, that's great. Let's keep you at that rating higher." So if you're sending out tweets, for example, with you, it'd be singer, Frank Sinatra, cabaret, whatever kind of keywords you'd like to use. That in itself can help the SEO, the search engine optimization of your site, if people are then clicking on links.
Is that important? And if it is, how do these people get seemingly thousands and thousands of followers? And are they all going to convert into, coming to see a show, buying a ticket or buying a product?
No, they won't all convert. I think that's something you should definitely accept. And you should also think of any kind of social media campaign, or using Twitter as the example, it should augment your existing strategy. So, for example, I think you have a very well-established email list, and that the people can sign up to that on the website, and people follow your newsletter, which is interesting, and it's something that is relevant to them that they will read. And you could simply augment that by saying, I'm also now on Twitter, and rather than every month, you'll have an update as and when there's any information, including photos and who I'm with and what I'm doing, or last minute discounts, or all kinds of things that some companies use.
It feels a bit lame to have 65 followers on Twitter. It feels like I should have hundreds or thousands of them. Should I?
There's two ways of looking at that. One is the more the merrier. If you have 10,000 followers, then if you had 10% come to see your show, that's still a nice turnout. Whereas There's the other argument is you only want people who are interested in you. So you only want people, for example, on a mailing list who are going to read your emails. Twitter works slightly differently to that. People understand that even if you're a big fan of Hugh Jackman or someone, you're still not going to read all of their tweets because they appear in a stream with everybody else's tweets, and they'll just go by. And maybe once a year you might actually get to read back through their whole list, but it's very, very unlikely. So it's just little snippets. You're just sort of throwing out little things here and there. What a lovely day. Have you heard my new album?
Yeah, this is it. So when you say a lovely day, I mean, I'm following people and they say, oh, I'm putting on my socks and, or I've just bought some, milk and it was a bit more expensive than it was yesterday. And I'm really not interested. And so I try and really restrict the number of people that I follow. And I'm starting to really just get a bit overwhelmed with too much information, and most of it is irrelevant. I'm not interested. If someone's made a new album or if someone's got a show that's going to be round the corner from where I live, then I'm interested. But it seems that 95% of the information that people are putting out and that I'm sort of expected to put out as well on Facebook and Twitter is just nonsense.
Yeah, and I think that's worth really separating your personal life from your business. If you want to use it as a business, I think it's much more interesting for the people who follow you as fans to hear your opinion maybe of another performer or of your last performance or some latest information about that. And then if you want to spout off about London Transport or something, have another Twitter handle which is just your friends and whoever wants to follow you there. I mean, there's arguments against that as well. For example, Lord Sugar talks about everything, and he has, I think, 3 million or something like that followers, and he talks about absolutely everything he watches on TV and everything like that.
He's the brand, isn't he? He's selling himself, and people are attracted to him because he's this character, and they want to hear him rant about whatever, the congestion or the people building in his street, as well as what his thoughts are on a share price for one of the companies that he looks after. Exactly,
and I think you're different to that in that people don't want to necessarily hear about you having a bad day or a bad flight. They want to follow you because of you might have a shared interest in music, and if you recommend an album, the chances are they might go out and buy it.
So do you think you should only communicate with your fans if you've got something really interesting to say, i.e. maybe once a week, once every 2 or 3 weeks, once every month? Or do you think, as I think you mentioned somewhere to me, either in a conversation or maybe in the book, that 3 times a day is the optimum number of tweets, or maybe I read that somewhere else? Seems a lot. I'm not sure I've got enough exciting things that happen to me in my career 3 times a day.
No, exactly. So, for example, because there's a constant stream of tweets, if it's 3 or 4 tweets going out a day, you're going to be seen probably once by each of your followers, maybe. I mean, that's kind of, it's all, again, throwing stuff out there. But if you're appearing several times without repeating yourself, then there's a good chance that you'll be seen and you're then in the mindset of your followers. But if it's not interesting and it's not relevant, then don't do it. So I think you're better off having fewer tweets with good stuff than you are having lots of rubbish. So what we're able to do is to share lots with, for example, Theatre Dig's book, a business for...
Which is a separate business that you have, that you've established for helping people to find somewhere to stay when they're touring around doing shows.
Exactly. And because most of the people that follow us are either actors or performers or in some way involved with theatre, that we share other news from people like The Stage and What's on Stage and people like that. So it's all industry relevant news, and that's quite simple to do, and you can automate a lot of that on a weekly basis just by sitting down for an hour, reading through all the blogs and the comments and bits and pieces, and say, oh, have you read this? This is the latest information about that tour and everything like that. And so you don't sit there every day writing 3 or 4 tweets. You spend an hour or 2 a week in one session, schedule it for the week, and then when you want the up-to-date stuff, you add that, augment it with that.
Do you think it works? I mean, I've just got this feeling that if everybody stopped tweeting, that it wouldn't make any difference to any sales anywhere, that everyone's just doing it because they feel they ought to do it because everyone's doing it.
Yeah, I'd love to see the figures on it. I'd love to see it to be switched off and see what happens, because definitely it helps with being found on Google. So if you suddenly start dropping down in Google, the chances are that but if everyone is getting their SEO from Twitter, then everyone will drop down by the same amount.
Well, that in itself is a good reason to do it, isn't it? Because we do feel that Google's quite relevant, and if people want to find you online, that we want to be quite high up on the listings. So using social media is a way, like you said before, of pushing people to your website. That's a good way to keep your Google ranking high.
Exactly, yeah. One of many ways, but that's certainly a very quick and easy way of adding to the ways of bringing yourself higher in the Google ranking. So Barry literally just sending out 10 automated tweets in a week saying, here's the latest chapter from here, or this is a snippet from my latest album, or whatever. Yeah.
So that's Twitter. How does Facebook differ?
Facebook is more closed in that you have to be on Facebook and you have to be following someone, if be like a friend of someone, have liked their page in order to receive their updates. You can go and trawl Facebook, but in order it works in a more closed way than Twitter.
More specific, isn't it? You go to, if I'm interested in Phil Barley and Theatre Digs Booker, I have to go to your page and click on a button to like it just to follow you. I can't go somewhere just to see everybody's Facebook updates in the same place as I can on Twitter.
Exactly, yeah. And so if you're running a Facebook page for like the Gary Williams fan page, for example, only the people that have liked your page will automatically see your updates. But the good thing about that is everything that you do, if it's relevant, will be interesting to those people, because it's a bit like signing up to a newsletter. You're getting that regular information. What I guess with both Twitter and Facebook, but especially Facebook, you can put out hundreds of updates which are terribly interesting, but if no one is sharing or commenting on them, they don't count for anything as far as your clout or as far as your actual reach is concerned. What you want to be doing is, in everything you do really, including what's called a call to action. So something like, I love this album, tell me how you'd rate this out of 10, or what's your favourite picture of this, or it's got to be some kind of question, just so that people know, oh, okay, I can join in on that. That sounds like a fun thing. And maybe quizzes or competitions and that kind of thing.
I tried something recently which I felt very successful in that I was deciding, I couldn't make up my mind between two album covers for the Brazil album.
I saw that, it's great.
Yeah, and I didn't do it because I thought, this is an excuse to try and boost some Facebook interest. The designer sent me 6. I whittled it down to my favourite 2, which were quite different. And I thought, I want to know what everybody else thinks about this. So I put it on Facebook and said, and it was very simple. It was like one or the other, the black one or the yellow one. Which would you prefer? And you could just send one answer, one word to reply. And of course, the numbers are always going to be quite small for someone like me, but so it wasn't thousands and thousands, but there were about 200 people responded to that. And for a start, it was really helpful for me, but it really got people engaged as well. And when the album's out, which it is shortly, I know that people are they're kind of waiting, because when I see people now and they say, the album's out soon, they all say to me, which one did you choose? And they all want, I think, so that was a very simple part of a very effective engagement with fans, which was useful to me and quite fun for them as well.
Yeah, and much bigger companies would be grateful for a post that receives 200 comments. I mean, so they are really good figures. And you made it really simple. You said this or this, one word answer, so someone can flick through their timeline, see that question and answer it within 3 seconds, and they've engaged, and then they're part of that now. So that's brilliant. I mean, that's definitely the way to use it.
I just need to make a new album that I can't decide on the cover every couple of weeks. That's the secret.
But you also engage your audience naturally, because you do the Sinatra jukebox, where you ask the audience what they want to hear, as far as I understand, and you can and they can say, I want these songs, and you'll put them in the set. And
we do that. Yeah, this is a show that we do where the audience are going to request the songs usually on the night, but I give people a chance to request it in advance via Facebook or the website, and people do. And it's great. And I just had someone the other day, actually, this wasn't a Sinatra jukebox show, but I put something on Facebook that I'm going to be performing in my hometown of Cleethorpes soon, and somebody responded saying, can you sing this song? I said, of course I can, so I've made a note of it, and I will. That's great, actually. I love the social media for that, because were it not for the social media, and she could have written me a letter, but she probably wouldn't have done that, so it would never have happened. And it is nice to have that kind of connection with your fan base, even though I've never knowingly met this person before. You know, I know she's going to be there and going to like this song that I've done for her. That's kind of cool.
That is, yeah. And you're already ahead of the game in that you love connecting with your audience, and you adjust your product according to what they want. So, for example, you could augment your existing patterns there with Twitter and say, okay, we're doing the Sinatra Jukebox, send in your requests using, and a good example here would be using the hashtag Sinatra Jukebox, something like that. And so, therefore, you'd in a simple search on your Twitter page, you can put in hashtag Sinatra Jukebox and see anybody that's written a request using that hashtag. And so that's another way of collecting those comments.
And if people don't have the time or still can't figure out how to do it, you offer some kind of consultancy, don't you? And many people do in taking care of this. Is that often an effective solution for people, just to pay somebody else to do it for them?
Yeah, so there's two ways. Digitalsurgeon.co.uk is my wife's company, and we both are involved with that. But basically, we offer kind of lots of free information saying, okay, here is how to do it, and this is, we think, as up to date as it can be, which is often what people need. But there's also a kind of training process that we go through, and then what some companies do is they go through the training process, realise that there's quite a bit to do entailed, and they then say, can you do it for us? And then we say, well, there's another package which is a maintaining package, and some of them have copywriting done as well. So there are companies out there, a lot of big companies outsource all their social media to big companies that, like us. We concentrate on small to medium enterprises, and you're able to carry on with your business and outsource your social media, and that's then managed for you, and then you get reports back saying you've had this many interactions this month, and this campaign did this well, and this one didn't do so well, so let's do more of that next month. And it's sort of the thing that if you're running a business yourself, you're learning songs in your situation and travelling and everything like that, you may be better off outsourcing, just so that you have the control of that.
And a good place to start is digitalsurgeon.co.uk.
Exactly. Great plug.
Thank you for listening to this Cabaret Secrets podcast. If you've got any comments or questions, please visit cabaretsecrets.com, where you'll also find details of the Cabaret Secrets book, an indispensable guide on how to create your own show, travel the world, and get paid to do what you love.